What's up, Gearholics? It's me, Zach, back here with another review. Today, I'm going to be doing a review on the Opinel. This is the Opinel No.8 outdoor survival knife, or at least that's what it's called. So the Opinel No.8 outdoor survival knife, which is a lot to chew off and a lot to say, comes from the brand, obviously, Opinel, or the knife company Opinel. They've been in business for a long time, since I think the late 1800s. And their original version of their knife, which they released back in the 1800s, is a very interesting, simplistic design that is obviously made out of a wooden handle with a nice little swivel lock here that locks the actual blade. It then comes up, and then you obviously twist the knife, you lock it, and it's a really nice, it's a really nice, clean, gentleman's knife. But it's also a really great outdoors knife, or at least a backup outdoors knife for doing chores around the campfire or whatever. So it's a really decent knife from a really decent knife company brand. It's been around for a long time, which has been proven since the test of time. And obviously they're still around, so you know people still buy their knives. So this is their outdoor survival knife. I think it's relatively new on the market. It may have only been around for a couple of years now. I've only had this one for a couple of months, and in my using it, it's really interesting. I have pros and cons that I like and don't like about it, obviously, and I kind of flip flop between liking it and not liking it. But it sits right in the middle of uh, my stack of knives on my like knives and my don't like knives. So it's not a bad nor is it a great, knife. So with that being said, I'll kind of talk about the pros and cons of what I like and what I don't like about the knife. I'm just kind of giving you guys a general overview of the knife. Uh, the actual length, the total length of the knife is 7.6 inches. The blade length is 3.25 inches. The blade thickness is zero point 0.1 inches thick, and then it's obviously made out of Sandvik 12C27. It's got a satin finish with serrations. The serrations are actually chisel ground into the actual blade itself. And then the handle length is 4.35 inches long, and it's made out of a polymer plastic. They come in different colors. I think they come in 4 or 5 different colors, like gray, blue, green. I got the green version, and then I think there might be a red or an orange, one of those two, or maybe not. You guys can look that up for yourself. And then the actual weight of the actual knife, the whole knife, weighs 2.2 ounces. So that's not that bad. It is a manual. It is a manual opener, and you have to manually lock it. The lock type I think is called a Viroblock or something like that. It's a kind of a different kind of locking mechanism. I've never really experienced other than in the Opinel brand of knives. Obviously these knives are produced in France, so it is a French design. The best uses for this kind of knife would be camping, hiking, and maybe even like a watercraft knife, just because for boating or for sailing out on the open ocean or in lakes. I think this better suits that kind of environment, just due to like the blade's steel and the durability of the handle and basically the whole material, all the materials that make up the actual knife itself. So getting into it, what I like about the knife, I like that it comes with different colors. I think that's really smart of them. I think that having different colors is one of those things that I really like. I like it when knife companies make knives in different colors. You can be selective about what you want. If you want black, if you want green, if you want gray, whatever. It's your choice to select your knives and really kind of make it your personal statement. And I think that's important. Individuality is where a lot of people are going nowadays, especially in especially in products. So I think that personalization of knives is very important. So I think Opinel did it right by offering different colors. I think though they could offer more colors and more options into this line and different cool like patterns and stuff going on the handles. I know that the company also offers that you can engrave your knives. You can engrave your name into the actual knife on this reverse side, um, and that's kind of a cool thing they offer. You have to pay a little bit extra, and I think you can get that on their actual website. The actual company engraves the knife with your name or your initials or whatever, or a saying or whatever. That's kind of cool. That's different. And I think that earns Opinel some points for me or from me. Uh, and so yeah, I do like that it has a nice lanyard hole. The lanyard hole is a kind of a funky lanyard hole, but you could squeeze some 550 cord through there. It did come with this really kind of dinky nylon rope, I guess, that would hold, to a certain degree. Um, I haven't replaced it because it's not that bad on there. It doesn't look that bad, and it does what it needs to do. It holds the knife up, and or you can clip that to yourself, and it's very important that it has a lanyard hole, so that way you can actually put a lanyard on it and keep it on you, so that way you don't lose the knife, which I think is paramount in every knife. I think every knife should have a paracord hole or like a lanyard hole. It does have a whistle. Here, let me close the knife so I'm not stab myself in the face. It does have a whistle that's been milled into the actual handle of the knife. And I think that's really kind of a cool, different feature. You don't see too many knives that have that. I know that there are a couple of knife companies that have been doing that lately, and I think it's really smart and ingenious to do, especially when you're offering an outdoor survival knife or an outdoor knife that you're going to be using, primarily on the outdoors, because when you have a whistle on you, it increases the chances of you actually getting found if you get lost. Usually, if you're lost and you're lost for a long enough amount of time, you start losing energy, and if somebody comes to try to look for you, if you have to yell, it wastes a lot of energy, and your yelling doesn't really carry as far as a whistle blow. So whistles are actually a lot louder than your yelling voice, and it saves you energy, and it saves you stress on your body. So having a whistle is actually paramount when you're doing any kind of survival activity, and you know that you're going into an area that you may either get lost in, or you run the risk of ending up in a situation. It's always good to carry a whistle, and that's nice that Opinel kind of made that a little bit more convenient for everybody by putting it into the actual blade itself. I have actually dunked this knife into water, and pulled it out and tried to blow in the whistle. And the water actually got trapped inside the mechanism, or inside the whistle components, and did make it a little bit harder to blow. It did kind of whistle a little bit, but I had to actually manually shake the water out and then blow on it, and it worked just fine. Just one of those things, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad aspect. I guess it's just one thing they should probably think about, is maybe tapping the smallest amount of hole to kind of help get some of that water out. And then if there's a small hole there, you can just plug it with your finger and then blow, and it doesn't it doesn't compromise the whistle in any way. I think that's just my opinion. And then let's see. The locking mechanism is actually pretty cool. When you close the knife, you can actually lock it, so that way the knife blade does not actually pop out and cut you, which is kind of a nice feature of this knife. And I know that all the other original versions have this too. It's like their safety lock, basically. And it's nice too, because you don't even really need to lock this knife. It's so kind of stiff still from being a newer knife. That you really don't need it, but I still lock it anyways, especially if I'm using it. But if I'm getting it out really quick to open a package, it's like it's done, and then I just close it up, and it's done. A nice aspect of that knife is the fact that you can kind of close it and it locks. And the locking mechanism works. I wouldn't say it's probably not the strongest locking mechanism, but it does work for Opinel. And I've never really seen this lock on any other knife other than the Opinel brand of knives. So it's a little bit different and a little bit cooler. It's got a cool factor, but it is kind of frustrating to kind of lock, especially when your hands are cold, or if you're tired, or if you have to lock this knife open. You can't just pull it out and it automatically locks. You have to manually lock it to make sure that it's safe. Not bad, but not great. Let's see. Another aspect of this knife is obviously the blade. The blade is nice. It's kind of a different shape. It is made out of 12C27. 12C27 Sandvik steel, which is really nice. It's one of my more favorite steels. I prefer this kind of steel over other types of steel. It's because it's low maintenance and you don't have to really think about it. It is like it does have chisel ground. It does have a chisel ground serrations in there, which aren't bad. They're just not. They're not as effective as you'd think they'd be. And in all honesty, I feel like knives that I feel like you don't really need serrations on a knife to cut rope. I think that a plain edge knife would do just as good. I think serration, unless you're cutting large amounts of volumes of rope, I don't think you need serrations. That's just my honest opinion, or my personal opinion of the knife. And it doesn't bother me that these are here, but I wouldn't prefer it. If I could choose, I would go with a plain edge version. But unfortunately, Opinel doesn't offer a plain edge version in this specific outdoors survival knife, which is not bad. I'll still use this knife. I just can't make feather sticks and do other outdoor activities or other outdoor cutting tasks that I would normally do with other knives that are plain edge with this because it's got the serrations on it. Another thing, I guess, is where the edge actually of the blade terminates is right near where your finger is. And when I put my hand on the actual handle of the knife, it is relatively close to the actual blade itself. So you need to be careful. Much like the Mora knives, it could slip up and slice your fingers on the actual bottom of the knife. So it's kind of a little bit dangerous, but you need to just be careful when you're using a knife anyways, even in a wet environment or in any kind of environment. You should always be aware of where your blade is at all times and where what you're going to be doing with it. So just think through your cut before you make it. That being said, that's kind of one of those negative aspects of this knife I don't really personally like. The other thing I guess I don't really personally care for is the blade shape of the knife. It's just kind of funky, and I feel like it's really wide. I feel like the original version is a little bit more simple, and it's a little bit more, it's a little bit cleaner, and it's not as large and overbearing. You can actually see like the actual difference between the two blade shapes. Now, Opinel, I don't understand why in the world would you change the blade shape of a blade you've been making for 100 years over this blade shape? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's just my honest opinion. I would like to see this blade on this knife in this blade steel. That would be kind of nice. But yeah, it's not a bad blade shape. It just isn't my preferred thing. It is sharp. You can poke things and dig out whatever you need to. I have done a little bit of batoning with this, just trying to see where it sits, and it does really well. The blade is nice and thick, and so you don't really have to worry about breaking it. I would worry about the stress points up here rather than breaking the blade anywhere down here, obviously, because the pivot pin is going to be where the blade is putting most of when you're hitting is what's most of the force is going to be applied here. So you should just keep that in mind when you're hammering on it. I wouldn't hammer away at this. I would say it's a nice backup blade for a primary knife, to do small, simple cutting tasks or camp chores. Not a primary knife at all. I would never consider this a primary knife. The nice little hole up here, it is great when you grab and you actually open the blade. It's good for pinching and opening the blade, but it's also wide enough because I think they originally designed it to be a shackle key, so you could stick it onto a shackle key. And a shackle key, you use a lot of those in sailing, I assume, since it shows a lot of sailing. Anyways, so you can use it on a shackle key, or you can use it to maybe open up like a bottle or something if you really had to. I haven't really tried to open up any bottles or anything with this, and I don't think that's one of the recommended things to do with it, but I bet you money that you could potentially open up other things with this, or really put this into different uses. But I can't really think of any that you would be able to use this for, but I'm sure there's more than one just function for that. I think it takes somebody else to really figure that out. But my overall thought on this knife is I think it's a good idea, and I think this knife really does represent a jump in thinking, especially for a company that's been around for 100 years. It's definitely a vast improvement over their older models that with wood. I think this is a lot more resistant to wear and tear and weather, and any really environment that you're going to put it into. I would like to see this come in smaller sizes, such as maybe an Opinel number 6 or Opinel number 7. Something a little bit smaller. I mean, this knife is nice and everything, but it's just I feel like it's really big, and the weight is nice on the knife. I have no complaints about how heavy it is. I guess I just have to complain about how big it is, and it is awkward when you stick it into your pocket. You do have this kind of large protrusion in your pocket, and it's not bad. But it just is awkward. And it doesn't have like a clip or anything, so you can't clip it and just immediately access it. But it is what it is, and it's not bad. I would say it's like a 3.5 out of 5 stars in my book. So it's right in the middle of where it needs to be, and that's not bad. And anyways, that's the Opinel number 8 outdoor. And hopefully you guys enjoyed my review. And if you want to know more about the knife, let me know, and I'll do more reviews. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the future. You guys be safe out there and try not to cut yourselves. All right, see you later.